Well, it has been a while since I've shot a video in here. Truth is, I hate this. I absolutely do not like this fish room anymore, and I've come really, really close over the last month or two of just breaking it all down. Now that's going to sound a little shocking to some people, I'm sure, and I haven't really shared that with anybody, but it's true. This fish room is no longer fun. It's no longer what it was intended to be. And so I did have a choice I was facing over the last couple months. Do I completely break this down? We were really close to doing that. And then I realized something. I realized that what the fish room had become was nothing close to what I wanted it to be. It's the strangest thing. Sometimes you go down a certain road and you don't realize how far you've strayed from your original path, your original plan, your original vision. And that's what happened here. I'm not really good at making these types of videos because I don't normally make these types of videos where I share what has been going on. But this is a big thing. We have had this fish room up and running well before Primetime Aquatics was ever a thing, and this was the background of a lot of our videos. And over time, what's happened is we started breeding fish, and that necessitated setting aside some tanks for breeding, which was part of the original plan of the fish room. And then we realized, wow, you know what, at these swaps, I can't keep up with the demand by just breeding fish, and so let me start bringing in fish, first from wholesale facilities, and then we were doing a lot of importing. And that's what we've been doing the last, well, probably at least 3-4 years or so, well, probably 3 years, a lot of importing. And pretty soon, this entire fish room turned into basically a quarantine room with 30 aquariums. And over the course of that time, don't get me wrong, I absolutely found it exciting to import fish. The support we got from so many of you who bought the fish at the swaps has been awesome. But it wasn't, I didn't love it. And I did something that I've warned you all about numerous times, and that is be careful when you turn your hobby into a job. And that's exactly what we did once we decided to start importing lots and lots of fish and selling them at swaps. This place here that you're looking at was no longer a place of relaxation, enjoyment, a hobby. It was work. As soon as you step in here, it was all about maintaining thousands of fish that we've brought through here, tens of thousands of fish that we've brought through here over the last 3 years or so. And so this summer, I really started to think about it. I'm like, wow, you know what? This is not really bringing me a whole lot of happiness right now. And it's really not worth all the work and the additional cost. Maybe we just break it down and turn this room into a different hobby room or a place to watch TV. And then I started to plan it. In my head, I started to plan what it would be like to break this down. And I got really sad and depressed about that idea. And I realized something. I realized I turned the hobby into a job, but I can always turn it back into a hobby. I can always make this what it was. And so that is what we're going to be doing. There's going to be some big changes coming back to Primetime Aquatics. So for those of you who like to buy our fish at the swaps, I am sorry to say that those days are officially over. We don't actually have a whole lot of fish here that we could actually bring to swaps, so it's a good time to maybe change things around. And so in this fish room, what we're going to be doing is returning back to its original purpose. We're going to make it an area that is an area of relaxation, enjoyment, where I'm going to be able to show you tanks that are actually done with cool stocking and just bring it back to what it was. Will we still have some quarantine tanks? Yes. Let me show you, well, a little bit of the plan. All right, so you might be asking yourself, well, why haven't you really shown the fish room all that much over the last couple years? Well, this is why. It is usually an absolute disaster. Now, the tanks themselves are fine. The water is healthy. The fish are all doing great. To be sure, we're still keeping up with all of our tank maintenance. We have to. When we're importing as many fish as we've been importing, we want to make sure that the fish that we bring to the swaps are as healthy as they can possibly be, and we have done a good job of that. However, when you have what is just a working fish room, you're going to have lots of messes. You're just going to have lots of water changes. We're going to have bins. There's usually multiple bins over here that are just being used to house water and make sure it's ready for the next swap. the tanks become very, very, very bare bones because we're trying to pull a bunch of fish out of these tanks and we can't have hardscaping or anything like that. And so we wind up with tanks that look like this, and this, and this. And we come over here, there's Joanna's one tank that she escaped, but we've got tanks that are empty like this. And up until a couple weeks ago, before Joanna had some plants to put in these tanks, just as storage, more empty aquariums. And so that is generally what has been going on. Let me circle back around here, not to try to trip on everything. But that's what's been happening. There's really not much to look at in here, and it's really quite displeasing to look at. So, got to make some changes. Change number one is we have more tanks in here than we need. And I want to get back to the original idea. Let me move some stuff out of the way so I can kind of step back here a little bit. I want to move back to the original idea. So for instance, I don't need a 20 gallon on the floor. That's gone. These 310s, they've never actually looked, ever since I've put them in here, I've never been super happy about their placement. They're gone. And so we're going to get rid of these 310s. These two tanks over here, they've never really served a great purpose. I don't like that 37. I don't like that 23 bow front. Guess what? They're gone. Don't know if you can see, but back there we've got three. Let me see if I can get back there just a little bit. Well, trust me, there are 3 20 longs back there strictly for quarantining import fish. They're gone because I want that space, and I want that space so that we can, instead of having hoses constantly on the floor, buckets, more hoses, random rocks, all kinds of stuff like that, that area is going to become storage. So we can clean up all of this fish room because, like I said, and I keep saying, it's an absolute mess. Got some stuff in the way here. These 3 tanks over here under the stairs, they're going to stay, but they're strictly going to be for quarantine so that when we bring in new fish, we don't run the risk of having some issues. Shockingly, I'm sure some of you are probably going to find this shocking. That 50 gallon lowboy, it's been a multi-tank for a long time. I like those fish, but it's time for a change. This tank has been this way. It's hard to believe, but this colony has been up and running for, I don't even know at this point, maybe 7 or 8 years. It's time for something new. I want to do something new in that tank, and so those fish will be moving out. I think a lot of the fish that we've got will wind up. Maybe we'll do one more swap just to kind of clear out some fish. Some of them I can bring to a wholesaler. Some of them I might bring to a pet shop and see what they want to do. But in the end, when it's all said and done, here's what I want to do. These 420s are going to be fully scaped. We're going to be very thoughtful about how we stock those 420 gallons. The 640 breeders, again, we're going to be extremely thoughtful about how we stock them. No more breeding tanks. So we're not the bristlenose breeding tank. We're not breeding bristlenose. The Blue Dream breeding tank, we're going to put some nanofish in there, kind of clean it up a little bit because right now, and let me actually, this is my favorite tank in this room right now. I showed this to our prime timers. Check this out. How cool is this? It's just a Blue Dream breeding tank, and I think once we kind of clear out some of the val, especially along the front, this would make an awesome sort of like 40 breeder nano tank where the Blue Dreams are still going to be okay, but we'll put some more nano fish in there. The Top 75, I scaped that a while ago. It was supposed to be like an Anubias forest. Well, most of the Anubias died, and then we wound up, somebody gave us some jungle val, which I really appreciated, and it has actually, strangely enough, I was floating it in here, and it has actually started to grow in. So I'm going to rescape that tank. 60 breeder needs to get done. The 125s, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I can tell you, not super happy with the bottom 125. That's a catch-all tank. Just, hey, whatever we've got, random fish, winds up in there. That's not going to work. The Vieja tank is cool. We'll figure out what to do with that. One thing I definitely want to do, this 50-gallon lowboy has the 420s underneath. And that's cool, but it's the placement of those 420s is too low. And so what I think I'm going to do is once I get the multis out, there's actually not a ton of fish in those 420s down there. I'm probably going to empty out all those tanks, take them off the stand, and I'm going to actually put essentially spacers underneath the stand. I'll do it correctly so that they're nice and sturdy. But I'm going to lift this stand up probably about 4 to 6 inches so that the 20 gallons are a lot easier to enjoy, where you can sit in a chair and actually look at them, a lot easier to clean. So that is definitely going to change. So when it's all said and done, on this side of the fish room, we'll have these 4 tanks, those 6, so that's 10. The low boy plus these 4 guys here, that's 15, plus those 2, that is 17. These 2 125s, that's 19. Those will be the actual tanks that are on this side, fully scaped, fully stocked, hopefully looking great. So maybe in a year or so, I come back and say, hey, when we do a fish room tour, it's actually going to be cool. And then the 3 quarantine tanks, of course, will stay up and running, but there probably won't be a lot in these 3 tanks just because they're quarantined. So yeah, sometimes you really start to think about what you're doing in life and with your hobbies and with your time, and you realize the path that you're on is not always the optimal path long term. Again, I enjoyed bringing in all the fish, and we learned a lot from the process. I really enjoyed selling the fish at the swaps, but in the end, it took something away from what was supposed to be a very special place, and I want to try to reclaim that. I want to try to make it what it was supposed to be, and I hope you guys enjoy this too, because it'll open up a whole bunch of new opportunities for us on this side of the fish room. It'll bring it back to what it was. You'll get to see a lot more of this, learn a lot more from some of the stuff that we set up, hopefully, and we'll see. I'm hoping in a year from now, like I said, this will be a very different looking fish room. As always, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.